You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Filmmaking Conversations with Damian Swaby. Listen to conversations with award-winning filmmakers, directors from the golden age of television, and creatives from the indie film community who continue to inspire the next generation of filmmakers. And now, over to your host, Damian Swaby.
Jaron, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm just happy to speak to you. I've been looking at your website and I can see you're a fellow Blackmagic cinema camera user. Am I right by saying?
Oh yeah, I love Blackmagic products. So I'm pretty much hung on Blackmagic. So that's what I'm using at the moment.
Nice. And is it a 4K or is it a 6K or what one have you got?
I have the 4K. I'm hoping to upgrade to the 6K. I love my 4K though, so I just kind of want the old 6K, the one that they're not even using much anymore, because I think they came out with two other versions of the 6K, but I want the old one that I could just slip right into the same cage that I get from my 4K, and that's all I need.
I understand what you mean completely, and to be honest, for me, my laptop, I'm not even sure if it can run 6K footage, to be honest. So if I try and edit 6K footage, it'll probably explode.
Yeah, mine is the same way. I have I actually edit on a laptop. My desktop went down on me, and I have a old gaming laptop, and that's one reason why I love just using DaVinci Resolve and Blackmagic files, because it just runs so smoothly on even the smallest of computers. So I don't see a reason to move away from it. I thought about going Red, but Red is so expensive, and for the way I work, Blackmagic design is perfect.
And that's the great thing with Blackmagic, in my opinion, as well, is that you have the option to upgrade to Red, but for what you get in terms of your finished product and for the cost and like kind of rigging up a Red camera, I personally just don't think it's worth it. That's my opinion. Yeah,
I don't either. And the 12K, if I wanted to upgrade and just go wild like that, the new sensor on the 12K looks amazing. And 12-bit, which Blackmagic has, and 16-bit, which is Red code. I don't think, other than people who are involved in filmmaking who are geeks about that stuff, like regular people who watch films, probably never noticed the difference between the two. So Blackmagic is where it's at for me.
Exactly. My thoughts too. We get caught up in it sometimes as filmmakers, but sometimes people will be like, oh, I don't even know, it just looks good. That's all they care about. It looks good.
Yeah, you explain it to them and do this long spiel, and they, oh, okay. That's how you get it.
Yeah, exactly. But okay, we've had a little bit of camera talk. I got excited from seeing your camera. But give us a bit of your origin story. Like, how did you get started in filmmaking? And more importantly, why?
Well, I started in high school. I took this theater arts class in my sophomore year in high school. That was, I want to say 2002. And I'm from a little small town here in Tennessee in the States. And, it was just a class that I had to take that year because all of my required classes were filled up, and I just had to take this class to kind of fill out my schedule for the year. And I said, theater arts, let me try that. And I just fell in love with it. I wrote a stage play that first year. I don't think we got to perform it that first year, but I ended up coming back, I think my junior year, and took the same class again, even though it helped me. It didn't help me at all to graduate. It was just basically a free period, and I took the class again, and they ended up performing that stage play for a couple years, even after I graduated. And, around this point, YouTube may have just started when I graduated. I think YouTube started maybe in 2005. And, the thought of going, at the time, the mind frame was you had to go to Los Angeles to pursue filmmaking or any dream in the film industry. And, I knew I couldn't afford to go out there, and I wasn't about to drop everything. So I kind of put the dream on hold. And then lo and behold, 10 years later or so, you can make films with this thing called a DSLR. You know,
Oh yeah.
you can afford to start making movies a little bit easier, and you got all these editing softwares. And I said, be worth a try. Let me try this writing thing again, and started making short films. And I just got that bug again. In 2016, I started my company, Misguided Perceptions Media Group. Uh, Made it a LLC and formal, and just started, building my craft. And, I mean, I'm totally self-taught. YouTube videos. I can't tell you how much YouTube content that I've consumed, just trying to learn these skills and hone these skills and get better. And just making films, self-financing, saving up, making films. And if I had have listened to the common thinking, even in 2016, everybody thought that you still needed $1 million, and you had to have all of this money to make a film. And if I had to listen to that, I probably wouldn't have made a movie. I had this naive belief that I could just go out there and do it. And that's kind of what leads me to the way that I'm making films now. And this way that's kind of real popular now, where a lot of people are just self-financing their own projects and making them with a small budget, and leaving that risk real low on that end.
I love all that you just said, because I'm exactly the same. It's like YouTube has been an amazing thing for me in financing my own films, and learning and do it my own way has been remarkable for me. Because if I'd went the other road, LA is a bit far from me. Like say, if I did that version of things in London, where like I'm waiting for people to finance my films, I'm waiting to finish a film program, I'm waiting, I wouldn't have anything to show. I wouldn't have anything to do in terms of a creative who is enjoying himself and feeling proud at times. That feeling you have after a shoot's ended, when you've nailed something that you really, really like.
Yeah.
Even last night, I was on Film Courage, or one of those YouTube channels. I don't know if you heard of Film Courage.
Oh yeah.
And I was watching one of those, and then when you just have that automatic YouTube and you start watching another, and someone was talking about pitch decks. So I thought, and I found this site called Shot Deck, and I was putting a shot deck together. And then before you know, it's like 3 a.m. in the morning, and I was like, whoa, okay, I better get to sleep, man. I've been loving myself on YouTube too much. And the great thing about YouTube is, as we've said, you can learn so much, you can find out so much, and so many people are willing to help, and it's all for free 9 times out of 10. But sometimes we don't have a structure in terms of how we learn, because there's so much out there, and there's no one saying, okay, here's one module, here's another module, here's one semester, do this, do that. How do you find a structure within being self-taught that has helped you move forward?
It's a lot of trial and error. I started a writer, so my interest at first was learning how to form a script, how to write a story, how to make a intriguing story. So, when you start there, that is the main foundation of filmmaking anyway. If your script is trash, if once you get that together, everything else kind of falls in place. So, next was trying to figure out how to make a film. And when I first started, I was going the route of looking for editors and trying to hire a DP. My brother was in school at the time for something similar to that. It wasn't necessarily based around cinematography, but I asked him for help, and he came and helped me. And I remember that first film I did almost failing because I was depending on people's help, and ended up getting burned, especially on my editor. So I started looking up, how do I edit? How do I use a camera, and just the basics of cinematography, and watching numerous short films, like low budget short films where people mostly used a tripod for the entire shoot, and how did they frame these shots, and learning how to frame. And I just was kind of just everything built from each process, from writing to actually going out there shooting the film, to the post-production editing. And then what I'm starting to learn now more and more of, which is marketing, how to get the film out there. So um, you kind of have to follow that little train, if I can say it that way, the steps of making it so you don't just consume so much content. And once you start learning these little things, you can watch YouTube all day, but if you don't go out there and actually make a film, you actually have to go out there and make a film to know exactly what you need to shore up at. Like, okay, I can do this better. Let me go look at some videos on this and see how they do it. And it just comes together. I mean, it all comes together once you just get out there and start doing it.
Editors have burnt many of us in the past.
Yeah.
Especially when we're new in filmmaking and we might not have a certain amount of connections. In what ways in particular have you been burnt by an editor, and how did you overcome these situations?
Well, the one memory that I have, I paid the guy up front. I thought that was usual practice. He was like, you pay me up front. And I actually went to his home, well, whose home I thought it was, and he started editing the project for me. And of course I'm naive to it, so I'm thinking he can edit the whole thing that day. And he was like, he got a good little ways in. He was like, this is, you're gonna have to cut it off for the night, and we'll come back to it. So, I was like, well, I have to go back home, which is about 150 miles away. Whoa. So I went back home, and he was like, I'll just converse with you, online and let you know the updates. And of course, those updates never came. And then I found out he moved. So, he had his money up front. So I've already paid him for the job, and he pretty much jetted on me. So I remember feeling so powerless over that situation. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to start learning how to do this myself. And I just remember feeling that powerless over something that I created, my own project, and I didn't want to feel that way again. And that was my burning drive behind learning how to do these skills myself. At least have a base knowledge for if, in the future, if I hired somebody, I know that I can come back and do this again. And since I've learned it, it's just, it's just been easier for me to do it anyway. I don't have to communicate with somebody, telling them what I want changed. When I'm in here editing, I'm in my office, in my own space, I could just start building that movie to the way I saw it in my head, or fix it to the way I see fit. And it's just a lot easier. And, just learning how to edit. And I actually enjoy it. It's kind of like the writing process all over again. They say you rewrite the movie in the editing room. Yeah. And that is true. And, I kind of enjoy editing. One job that I'm looking forward to kind of stepping away from and letting somebody else handle is being behind the camera. I'm looking forward to the day I can hire a director of photography to handle all the camera work and lighting and all this, and I can just sit back and focus on directing. But yeah, I probably continue editing no matter how far this goes.
Excellent. So how many hats exactly do you wear? We know you use a camera, you write, you have to produce as an indie filmmaker, at least co-produce, you edit. And so what else do you do? Or are those the 4 hats?
I do everything, like every single thing. I'm the sound man. I set up the lights, I'm the grip. I had to pull all the equipment out of my car. Every now and then I've even tried to play with makeup before. Like I've done it all. Now, if anything, I try to at least save for, especially if it's a job that needs a makeup artist, I'll at least try to save for a makeup artist. But yeah, I do it all. I do it all.
You're incredible. And you're a workhorse, that's for sure. I mean, the amount of stuff you've done is insane, in my opinion. Yeah. Like 8 feature films.
Yeah.
I've done 1, and it will never see the light of day because it's that bad. So explain to me, what is your workflow like, and who else are you working with? Because I've noticed in some of your trailers, there's like a couple of people you see more than once. Like they seem like maybe collaborators you work with often. So how do you get all of this done? And what is the film scene like in Tennessee?
Well, it's kind of in my general area. It's starting to be a lot more people that are interested. I don't know anybody else still who's actually going and making films. You have a lot of people who are. It may be one other person. I think that she's making short films, but the film community here is, especially when I first started, was non-existent. So Memphis is about an hour west of where I live, Memphis, Tennessee, and that is where the film community mostly is, in closest proximity to me. And just networking with them, and I met a few actors over the years, and just started working with them, and um, especially on the low budget end when I can't pay a whole lot. That's one thing I try to do anyway, still pay my actors, but you're not making you're not getting rich on my sets, but I'll at least try to compensate you fuel and a small day rate. You'll find that you'll come across some unprofessional people.
Oh yeah.
And I've had a lot of issues where I'll come to set, and I'll notice somebody on the call time ain't there. So I'm having to, by us being low budget, I'm renting locations and I got all this stuff here. I'm having to rewrite my scene or my script right there on set so that I can make this day work so it's not a total loss. So I've dealt with that a lot. And a lot of the actors that I work with now, it's just the trust with them. So, and one of the ones that's in my movie Succuba, his name is Keith Johnson. Like, he's kind of like the Sam Jackson to Quentin Tarantino for me, because I could just give him a script. I don't even have to tell him anything about it. And he knows my dialogue. He knows how I want it done. So he's a great friend and collaborator where, he'll probably be in a lot of my movies regardless. And that's usually how I have to work, because by being a self-financer of my projects, it's just easier to continuously work with people I know I can trust and depend on.
That's completely true. And I understand. I've got that same type of thing for myself, because sometimes people just are kind of able, or I don't know if they just don't get it. I often think as well, like, what do they want to get from the day? Or what do they want to get from being an actress or an actor, or, or whatever? Because if they're not prepared to commit for the sake of not making themselves look like an idiot, what is it all about?
Yeah.
What is it all about?
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing feature films? Because most of us, we do short films first, and then we take the move into feature films. When did you start making feature films?
I started really my first film, as crazy as it sounds, was I want to say it was almost a feature. Some people might say it's a feature on the short end. It was like 45 minutes, my very first film. And like I said, I was naive. I had no idea about any of it. So it was just that naive drive that made me do that film. And ever since I could see that I can make a film that long, all I needed was 20 or 30 more minutes, I just started just making feature films from that point on. And I've been making feature films ever since, honestly. And if I do a short film, it was for either a competition or it was festival related, and I would do it specifically for that. But I've always had kind of like a business mindset with my films, because I can't remember the website. It was, I think, VHX or something, where it would allow you to kind of just self-distribute and sell your films.
Yeah,
I always looked at it as a business from that sense, like, hey, this is something that I can do and kind of hopefully go toward making a living with it. And I've had that mind frame from the start.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that, because I know one of the first thing I saw, which I really liked, it made me want to get up and make something, if I'm really honest with you, something like I've never really made before, was They Live in the Shadows. And that's available on Tubi, the American site, and Roku, the other American site that people are allowed to watch films on. Tell us about your experience distributing your films on such platforms and how they work for you financially.
Well, especially with They Live in Shadows when it first came out, it was hard trying to find a distributor for it. And I went on this site. It's called Film Hub now. I think it's in the UK also, where you can basically upload your film and they'll take it through quality control, make sure it's right for these platforms, and they'll send it out. So They Live in the Shadows. I submitted it there thinking nothing of it, and it took about a year and maybe 2 years. And one day I just opened up Film Hub. I was like, okay, wow, it's starting to get a little traction out there somewhere. Like with a budget like that was a movie where the cabin in there belonged to my friend. It's his family's cabin, so it was free.
Nice.
One of the other locations was free. Those two actors, the two leads that are in 95% of the film, they are actually from the Memphis area. So what I did is I housed them at my house to save money. Fed them what we ate, here at the house, groceries we already had on set. We would fix lunches and stuff, bring it to set. And of course I had the camera and I'm doing all of the stuff on set. Some of my brother and stuff would help me boom a mic and this and that. And like I literally made that movie for $500 like up front. Yeah, I literally made that movie. That's all I spent making that movie. And when we had the screening, we had a like a little private screening and sold tickets for it. And what I did on that end is the money we sold from the tickets, after I paid my expenses out of that for like renting the theater to show the movie, I just gave that money. I split it with the actors. So
brilliant.
Even though I had a $500 budget, I was able to, pay my actors for this film. So that was a process to where I noticed that, I'm a low budget filmmaker and I can still compensate my actors, but I have to do it a little bit more creatively. So, that's how I would go about is, hey, I may have to, I defer your pay or something like this until the screening. And a lot of them were cool with it. They were like, okay, that's fine. Because a lot of them probably would have done it unpaid anyway.
Yeah.
But, after I've done so many films, I just hate the sound of saying, this is free. I have 8 feature films. So, hey, this is unpaid role. I just hate the sound of that. So I try to at least compensate them in some way, even though my budgets are minuscule. And, They Live in Shadows, it did rather well. I mean, you almost had to do horribly not to make $500 back. But it did rather well, and it showed me that, you can get out here and kind of make a profit if you just keep that budget low, and promote your movie, and you can make some stuff happen.
So you had the film. How many actors were in the film?
2 leads, and then I had excuse me, I had 1, maybe 2 more actors just showed their face in it.
And you shot the film, and your brother did audio.
Yeah, my brother held the boom mic, because I used a Panasonic G7 to film that film.
Okay.
Little small DSLR camera, mirrorless camera, little Lumix camera. And I had actually this is what I used for audio, this thing that you can kind of just put up under the camera. And so it was all up under the camera, and I just needed him to hold the boom for me. Just hold the boom and get the audio. And it was very small footprint, so it was just me. And putting most of that film was shot on sticks, on tripods, and he was holding the boom. And I mean, it worked well.
Excellent. I'm definitely going to put details of where to watch the film, and of course all of your website in the show notes, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
great stuff there, and a lot people can learn from, because I would never have thought that was basically, one filmmaker and his brother coming to help out. It doesn't
Yeah.
look like that. So you done very, very well. But
I
what was the
appreciate it.
inspiration behind that film? What made you think about making it?
To be honest, a lot. I have an outline of movies that I really, really want to make, and the reason I haven't made them is because I know I don't have the budget or the crew to make that happen. So a lot of times the films that I write, especially at this moment, I'm just thinking of what can I do with the budget. It's not this wild inspiration behind a lot of the projects. I have one called Down Bad that I kind of had an inspiration behind. But other than that, most of it is budget related. Like, what can I make for this small amount of money? What can I make using only this small amount of characters? And then, keeping that in mind, and I'll think of what locations do I have access to, and then I'll just put all those in front of me, and then build a story from those limitations to the way that whenever I'm writing, I know what limitations I'm dealing with, and I don't build a story that's too big for that. And it just like with They Live in the Shadows, I knew if I set this all up in this one setting, inside this house with these two characters, I knew I could get it filmed in a rather quick time, and I didn't need more than what I had to get that movie completed. And that's just been a system that I've carried with me every single film. I have some films that I probably were a little too ambitious, but like things happen on set that always
Okay.
happen that kind of caused me to go another way. But yeah, that's the same system I use almost on all of my films.
So how many days was the shoot for the film?
They Live in the Shadows, I want to say was 5 days.
5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Okay.
5 days.
Really good that you're able to do these things and you have that mindset, because I and many others, I think, do think, well, I don't want to write this script because I've got like one Blackmagic camera, I've got some Rode mics, how many locations can be in this because I can't afford,
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. But do you ever feel sometimes you just want to write something with the idea in mind that you've got $1 million?
I think of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm when I write, I'm constantly writing, and my cell phone, this notes app that's on the cell phone, I tear
Yeah.
this little notes app up, and I'm always writing outlines. Like my outlines are very detailed. I'll try to think of a beginning, middle, and an end for just my outline. Um, so when I come up with the outline, I'll just go ahead and save that for later instead of writing out the script. Whenever I usually write out a screenplay, it's with the intentions of making it. So if I get hit with an idea that I know I probably can't produce right now, I'll just write a detailed outline, save it for later. I actually have that with a Western. It's a Western that I really
Okay.
want to make. And I know I can't produce it on the budget. I might actually try a crowdfund one day for it, but like it's a bigger movie. And I'm gonna, I have that outline stash. So that's what I usually do. I try not to get my expectations too high, knowing that I don't have the budget to fit those expectations, and just keep it all together, and just make what I know I can make at the moment. And the bigger stuff, the dream stuff, I'll save it for later. And that way I can still have that creativity for both ends.
So what have you got coming up in the future? I'm sure with your history, you've got like at least 9 projects on the go.
Well, I'm writing a film, one of my very first films that like you said earlier, that's locked in the vault never to see again. It's called Betray. And now that I'm a better filmmaker, it's kind of like this romantic thriller type of film. Um, now that I'm a better filmmaker, I'm improved on my craft. I'm rewriting that story because I felt like it had a lot of potential, and that's probably going to be one that I produce this summer. And then another film that was a web series is actually on YouTube called The Sticks. it was a web series that I did that was kind of popular. I'm making it into a film and kind of rewriting that story as well. So on this year, I'm kind of rewriting older projects that, I look back and I'm like, I could have did that better. I'm just kind of rebirthing some older projects and just seeing where that goes at this time. But I got the Reaper Man coming out next week after next. So I don't want to get started too deep other than just writing, knowing that I still have another film that I kind of have to market and get out there into the world.
Excellent. I like your style as always. And now you're at this point where you can reshoot previous work with an experienced head on your shoulders. If you could go back in time to when you first started out as a filmmaker, what advice would you give yourself?
I would tell myself to slow down, to be patient. Like a lot of experiences early on, I would feel like I have to get it now. If I wasn't satisfied, I would just be all right. I'm fine with it because I don't know if I ever have to have this actor again. I don't know if I ever get this location again, so I have to finish it now. I have to get this scene in, even if I wasn't satisfied with a performance or how something happened. And then I would still end up putting those scenes into the film, especially with audio. One thing, it was the hardest to master is having great audio on set. And, I had the equipment, I had everything, but especially when you're dealing with amateurs who don't know about how to boom and stuff, you get that echoey audio.
Yeah.
And when you put it into editing and try to clean it up, you get this garbled mess. So, a lot of my older films, like I'll listen to it and I just screech. And I've finally got to a point to where I can get great audio working the way that I work. And, I would just tell myself to just slow down, get it right. If you're not satisfied, come back and do it again. And don't settle, because later, especially when you get more under your belt and more experience, you're going to look back and cringe at what you did when you could have just took a little bit more time and fix that problem that you knew you had at the time. So that's what I'll tell myself. Just slow down, get it right. If you don't get it right, come back and do it again.
And independent filmmakers that are self-financing their film, a lot of us obviously have full-time jobs or obviously are freelancers or do other things in terms of making an income. What would you say would be an ideal budget for a first-time filmmaker who's making a feature film? One location, two or three actors, dramatic story.
My goal of a budget would be, I would say I would try, just to be comfortable, $5,000 here in the US. That I don't know what that would equate to in pounds.
£3.5 pounds. £3,500. So
pounds, yeah. So I would say that, but I've made it with way less. So it really matters on. I practice what I call resource filmmaking. What do I have access to? Who do I have access to? And the time, so I'll build all of that first and come up with a budget around that. If you can get your locations free, that cuts a lot of your budget. If your actors are willing to work free and maybe come, like I said earlier, and get some, back in off of your screening or tickets that you sell, then you can cut a budget off then. And then you're focused on mostly feeding, and getting food. And if you're creative with that, you can feed well with a small budget as well. So I would just say, get all that in front of you, come up with a story to fit what you have, and then build your budget around that. And you can literally make a movie with no budget. Like, if you really are creative and you're focused on making it, and you have people to collaborate with, like actors who know the details that you're, the parameters that you're working in, you can actually make a film with a very, very, very small budget, and make a good film. You just got to have all those things in mind before you start.
Excellent. You echo the filmmaker spirit, that's for sure. There's no doubt about it. The indie filmmaker spirit is in you. That's for sure. I love it. Jaron, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it. And you're really a trailblazer, man. You really are. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.
Have you thought of upgrading your cinematography game? Would you like to have an ASC cinematographer mentor you for free? Join veteran cinematographer Suki Medenzovic, ASC, Disney, Pixar, FX Networks, Netflix, American Horror Story. As he teaches you how to create beautiful images using 3 lighting techniques he has mastered on film sets over his 30-plus years in the film industry. Each technique uses basic, low-cost lighting equipment so that anyone can achieve beautiful visuals no matter your project's budget. If you want to take your cinematography to the next level, visit filmmakingconversations.com to sign up for instant access. If you like this podcast, share it with friends. Leave a comment in the comments section and hit the subscribe button.